Well, good afternoon, and sorry we're starting a few minutes late. I'm Jeffrey McKay, Chairman of the Fairfax County Board of Supervisors, and I'm excited to welcome each and every one of you to our Red Flag Law Information Awareness event. On June 25th, 2019, the Fairfax County Board of Supervisors adopted a resolution to support common sense gun safety legislation during a special session of the Virginia General Assembly. On July 1, 2020, the Commonwealth of Virginia's Emergency Substantial Risk Order, which stands ESRO law, or Red Flag Law, as we know it, went thankfully into effect, making Virginia the 19th state to enact such legislation. I want to be clear, the Board of Supervisors strongly supports the Red Flag Law, and the county has put the resources in place to support this important effort. As we kick off our awareness campaign today, we ask our community to prevent a gun tragedy from occurring and to speak up. Virginia's Red Flag Law enables our Fairfax County Police Department to investigate and seek a court order to temporarily remove a gun or guns from individuals who have been determined to be an imminent threat to themselves or to our community. You will hear some impactful stories from the county's leaders and from community members today on how the Red Flag Law can be used to prevent gun violence and to serve as a call to action to our Fairfax County community to contact authorities who can act quickly to prevent tragedies. Emergency substantial risk orders prevent individuals who show signs of being a threat to themselves or others from purchasing, possessing, or transporting any kind of firearm while providing necessary procedural safeguards to ensure that no firearm is removed without a due process. Today's information will be shared exclusively and extensively on countywide social media platforms, on video, and by our community leaders and partners throughout Fairfax County and the region. I am proud that Fairfax County is leading the way to this community to call to action that will create safer circumstances for individuals to access treatment services and eventually a safer community for everyone. That is what we were all on the team wanting to do here today. I am pleased to introduce to you at this time our next speaker, my colleague on the Board of Supervisors and the chairman of our Public Safety Committee, Lee District Supervisor Rodney Lusk.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am incredibly pleased to be here this afternoon launching what I believe will be a life-saving initiative. Preventing gun violence is too often viewed as a federal or state issue and as a challenge that looms too large and too daunting for local government to impact. Fortunately, with this new red flag legislation, the General Assembly has given us the necessary tools to prevent gun violence in our community in a very real way. I'm especially pleased with the urgency with which Fairfax has brought this initiative forward. From Mr. Friedman's initial advocacy to Supervisor Walkinshaw agreeing to join me in bringing our board matter forward, to Commonwealth Attorney Steve Descano's willingness to be open and dialogue with us on this very important issue, and to help the board understand how we could coordinate our actions alongside the critical role that his office plays under new state regulations. And to the expansive team that has met numerous times over the short period since our board matter was approved to bring us to where we are here today. All of that urgency, all of that coordination, frankly, all of the passion that has brought us to this point on such an expeditious timeline is endemic of the value that Fairfax County places on public safety and human life. I'm incredibly proud and appreciative of your efforts and encourage every member of the community to be cognizant of this new resource and to do your best to make others aware as well. I truly believe what we've done here today with this effort will absolutely save lives. thank you very much for this opportunity, and to everyone, I wish you a very happy holidays. And I'd like to now introduce our next speaker. That is Amanda Paris with the Domestic Violence Detective from the Fairfax County Police Department.
Good afternoon. I'm Detective Amanda Paris, and I'm the Domestic Violence Detective with the Mason District Station. I'm here today to provide a brief overview of the law, explain our officers' involvement with the emergency substantial risk orders, and provide a better understanding of how the ESRO and SRO process works. But first, let me explain the two orders. For an emergency substantial risk order, a Commonwealth attorney or a law enforcement officer can petition a judge or a magistrate to issue an ESRO if they find probable cause that a person poses a substantial risk to either themselves or others in the near future by either being in possession or acquiring a firearm. This order prohibits the person from purchasing, possessing, or transporting a firearm for the duration of this order. Now, no petition shall be filed unless an independent investigation has been conducted by law enforcement that determines the ground for this petition exists. So things that we consider while gathering this evidence are the recent act of violence, force, or threat directed towards another person or themselves. Upon the service, the person subject to the order will be given the opportunity to voluntarily relinquish their firearms in their possession. This order can either be taken out where the person resides or where the person engaged in this conduct for which this petition is based. An emergency substantial risk order shall expire at 11:59 p.m. on the 14th day following the issuance of this order, and a copy of this order will be given to the person as well as to circuit court. So we talked about the emergency substantial risk orders, so now let's move to the substantial risk orders. So for the SRO, the Commonwealth attorney and the officer will be present in court. Under this order as well, the person is prohibited from purchasing, possessing, and transporting a firearm. The SRO either may be issued for a specific time period, but a maximum of 180 days at a time. Now that can be extended indefinitely, but up to 180 days at a time. If the SRO is issued, our department will hold on to the weapons until this order expires. If it is issued, if it's not issued, or if the court orders the weapons that can be transferred to another individual, then our department will relinquish those weapons to whoever the court has deemed appropriate. So far, our department has obtained 34 emergency substantial risk orders and has taken 120 weapons out of the hands of individuals who have been at a substantial risk to themselves or others by being in possession or acquiring a firearm. I would now like to introduce James Walkinshaw, the Braddock District Supervisor of the Fairfax County Board of Supervisors. Thank you.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. What a wonderful day to be here to raise awareness of this life-saving tool, a really life-saving tool. And Chairman McKay and Supervisor Lusk did a great job representing the Board of Supervisors. I want to today represent another group that I'm involved in, which is Fairfax County's Council to End Domestic Violence. And I have the great honor of chairing our Council to End Domestic Violence, which is a group of senior leaders from across the county, community members and advocates who work to unite around solutions, initiatives to end domestic violence in Fairfax County. And we know how important that mission is. And I just want to share a couple of statistics in terms of the connection between firearms and domestic violence. And we know that firearms contribute to domestic violence. They significantly increase the lethality of domestic violence situations. 4.5 million women in the United States of America have been threatened with a firearm. 4.5 million women. It's not a rare occurrence for a woman in this country to be threatened with a firearm. 1 million of those women have been shot at with a firearm. Again, not a rare occurrence in this country. We know that a victim of domestic violence whose abuser has access to a firearm is 5 times more likely to be murdered. 5 times more likely to be murdered. So guns and domestic violence do not mix. And that's why we're here today, to raise awareness and ask for the community's support in implementing this red flag law. And my role as chair of the Council to End Domestic Violence is really to support and facilitate the work of the professionals and volunteer advocates who are out in our community each and every day. Thousands of people who are working to end domestic violence on the front lines each and every day in Fairfax County. And one of those people is our next speaker, who it's my great honor to introduce. Angela Yaboa is the Advocacy Services Program Manager for the Fairfax County Division for Domestic and Sexual Violence Services. She provides leadership and overall vision for the Advocacy Services Program and the Domestic Violence Action Center, which is a co-located comprehensive service center with multiple service providers who help and support victims and survivors of domestic and sexual violence, human trafficking, and stalking. She facilitates collaboration for effective service provision among DVAC's 15 governmental and community-based partners, and right now serves as a co-lead on our Council to End Domestic Violence's Firearm Surrender Working Group, which has been working to ensure that this law is implemented in the most effective way possible right here in Fairfax County. Angela Yaboa.
Thank you, Supervisor Walkinshaw, for your unwavering support and commitment to ending intimate partner violence. I would also like to thank our esteemed panel of speakers, many of whom are collaborative partners and have walked side by side with the Department of Family Services Division for Domestic and Sexual Violence Services, or DSVS, on our journey towards ensuring safe and thriving communities. Finally, a thank you to Director Beckett of the Department of Family Services, Alicia Blackwell, Deputy Director of Clinical Services for the Department of Family Services, and Tony Zollicoffer, Division Director for DSVS, for their support and effort to end violence in homes and communities. You know, Supervisor Walkinshaw mentioned some stark and alarming statistics relating to gun violence and its connection to domestic violence. We understand why this legislation is so critically important when we hear these statistics. In Virginia, more than 1,000 people die by gun violence each year, nearly 75 of which are family or intimate partner homicides. Even when a gun is not discharged, the mere presence of a gun is often used to coerce, threaten, and terrorize victims, inflicting enormous psychological damage. In 2016, Fairfax County implemented the Lethality Assessment Program, which is also known as the LAP. The LAP is a partnership between law enforcement and DSVS, whereby an evidence-based tool is utilized at the scene of a domestic violence incident to determine whether a victim is high risk of being killed by their partner. If the victim is deemed to be high risk of being killed, law enforcement will call the LAP line to speak with a DSVS LAP advocate who will connect the victim to agencies and local domestic violence service programs for life-saving services. In fiscal year 2021, 353 LAP calls were made to the LAP line by law enforcement. Of the 353 LAP calls, an estimated 33% of the victims reported their partners either owned or had access to firearms. As Supervisor Walkinshaw mentioned, women are 5 times more likely to be murdered by an abusive partner when the partner has access to guns. Sadly, headlines of mass shootings remain unending. There is a clear correlation between these shootings and intimate partner violence. More than 2/3 of mass shootings are domestic violence incidents or are perpetrated by shooters with a history of domestic violence. This legislation puts in place measures to remove firearms from potentially lethal situations, policies which provide law enforcement officers, prosecutors, and the court tools to enforce measures to protect victims, their families, and communities from harm. DSVS has a long-standing history of supporting critical and life-saving legislation that have a significant impact on victims and survivors of intimate partner violence. As part of that support, DSVS works in collaboration with many county and community partners, including the Council to End Domestic Violence and the Firearms Work Group, to help keep communities safe. On behalf of Director Beckett, Deputy Director Blackwell, and Division Director Tony Zollicoffer, I am honored to stand before you in support of this red flag law. It is a positive step towards providing safety to victims and survivors and to the community. DSVS recently updated its strategic plan, and this legislation aligns with DSVS's vision towards peaceful, thriving communities that are free from oppression, fear, and violence. Thank you. I'm pleased to introduce our next speaker, Belinda Massaro, Mobile Crisis Unit Manager for Fairfax Falls Church Community Services Board. Thank you, everyone.
Good afternoon, everyone. The Fairfax Falls Church Community Services Board, also known as the CSB, provides services for people of all ages who have mental illness, substance use disorders, and or developmental disabilities. Our services and trainings have continued throughout the pandemic, and our emergency services at the Merrifield Crisis Response Center is open 24/7. Suicide is a leading cause of death in the United States, and firearms are the most common method of death by suicide. This law can be a public health life-saving tool to prevent gun tragedies. It temporarily restricts access to guns for individuals who are at a higher risk of harming themselves or others. Family members are often in the best position to identify a crisis situation and know when their loved one could be at risk of harming themselves or others. An individual history of mental illness or a specific diagnosis is not a good predictor for violence. Most people with serious mental illness are not violent towards others. In fact, only 4% of violent acts in the United States are associated with serious mental illness. People with mental illness are more often victims of violence than the cause of violence. Studies have shown that people with mental illness are 23 times more likely to be victims of a violent crime than others. The CSB also offers the Lock and Talk program. This is part of a comprehensive approach to suicide prevention in the Commonwealth of Virginia, and it's being implemented by the CSB's Wellness, Health Promotion, and Prevention program. The program includes free locking medication boxes, as well as cable and trigger locks that fit a variety of firearms. The gun locks and lock boxes include information on safe and handling, messaging, and tips to secure firearms and medications. We are pleased to continue our partnership with the Fairfax County Police Department and other county agencies and organizations represented here today as part of the county's initiative and action plan to continue to educate and inform the community on public safety issues. And with that, thank you very much. I will present our next speaker, Mr. Paul Friedman, Executive Director of Safe Country.
Well, thank you very much. My name is Paul Friedman. I am the founder and executive director of Safer Country. We're an Alexandria-based gun violence prevention nonprofit. And we are honored to be part of this program today and to be among these fine people who have led this effort at the supervisor level here in Fairfax County. In particular, I want to extend my thanks to Supervisor Lusk for being so gracious in hearing me out when I brought this idea forward, and for working with the chairman and with Supervisor Walkinshaw to get a unanimous vote on the part of the supervisors to go forward with this public awareness campaign. It's a critical campaign. As we know, we are now living in a world with a gun violence crisis, and I might add that in thanking them, I want to thank them also for including Safer Country and myself in the creation of this project, which led to our proposal of the slogan, Prevent a Gun Tragedy, Speak Up. it's an important slogan. It gets right to the heart of the problem. And the problem is that while law enforcement has done a very good job so far in bringing this law forward and using it, the broader public has been largely unaware of the existence of the law, but its involvement is critical to its success. We do have a website. You can see it up here on the screen. I urge everybody to go to the web page, look at it, read about it, find out about it. It may be a time in your life when you may want to use it, and we certainly hope that does not happen, of course, but that's why we're here, to try to save lives. Now, tomorrow is the 9th anniversary of the Sandy Hook mass shooting. I mention that because it's proximity in time, of course, but also because it happened in Newtown, Connecticut. I grew up just miles away in Trumbull, so it means a lot to me. But I want to bring attention especially to the Parkland tragedy, because the Parkland tragedy could well have been prevented had this law existed. In fact, Fred Guttenberg, who has spoken so much since that time about the loss of his daughter Jamie, spoke to me recently on a Zoom conversation, which can be found on our website, safercountry.org, in which he said that had this law been in place then, his daughter would be alive today. And we're thankful that Florida passed this law after that crisis, after that tragedy that took so many lives, 17 lives. But of course, it's not just mass shootings where this law has an impact. As we've heard, suicide and other ways that we can prevent gun violence by putting forward this law and making people aware of it. I would mention that a famous NFL player publicly, it's now known publicly, Richard Sherman, he lived in Washington State. This law was used in connection with a time when he was troubled. Multiple weapons were removed from his possession. Thankfully, he's alive, his friends and family are alive, and he's back playing in the NFL. So we can save lives with this law, and I want to thank everybody here for doing everything they can to get this word out. Together, we can create a safer country, and today, we're starting by creating a safer county. Thank you very much, and your next speaker, I'm proud to say, is the Commonwealth's Attorney, Steve Descano.
Thank you, Paul, for that introduction and for your impressive advocacy on this matter. And as a matter of fact, I'd like to thank all of today's speakers. To my colleagues, Chairman McKay, Supervisor Lusk, Supervisor Walkinshaw, thank you so much for your leadership on this important issue. To Ms. Massaro, thank you so much for your work on helping individuals who are in crisis. And of course, to Detective Paris and Ms. Zaboa, I want to thank you for their important work, because as we know, too often gun violence takes place against the backdrop of domestic violence, and we must be vigilant in stamping out this through the use of interventions like our red flag law. This red flag law, make no mistake about it, it is a critical tool for my office and our partners in law enforcement to disrupt and prevent potential gun violence. We need to make sure everyone in the community is aware that this exists as an option and how to avail themselves of the benefits of the red flag law. So to anyone listening, I would say the big takeaway is, if you know someone with a gun acting in a way that concerns you, please speak up. Help us prevent another gun tragedy. Please reach out to the police department via their non-emergency line to get started on this process so that we can help our community and avoid potential gun violence. Let's be clear. This is an essential tool. So far, to date, in addition to the emergency risk orders, my team has secured 18 substantial risk orders in Fairfax County. And that means every single one of those, that's 18 potential shootings averted, 18 potential murders not committed, 18 potential lives saved. And even in the face of that impact, some in Richmond have expressed a willingness to repeal these red flag laws. We cannot let that happen. It is too important. We cannot go back to a day when law enforcement's hands were tied when they were faced with someone who represented a danger to themselves or to the community. Virginia's red flag law is a common sense approach to ending gun violence, and it should be strengthened, not repealed. So again, if you're listening, please make sure that you and your family know how to take advantage of the red flag law. And if you see or know of anyone that's acting in a way that's troubling, that has a gun, please reach out to the police department on the non-emergency line to make sure that you start the process of getting these emergency risk orders. Now that concludes the remarks portion of the event, and what I'll do is I'll hand it over to Tony here to field and facilitate any questions anyone has for myself or anyone else on the panel. Thank you.
Chairman, as Steve just indicated, the governor-elect has indicated that he would move to potentially repeal Virginia's red flag law. Your response to that, and does the county have any authority whatsoever to continue enforcing something similar should it be repealed at the state level?
Yeah, so let's hope that doesn't happen. I think it's clear our board, and I chaired our legislative committee for a lot of years before I was elected chairman, and our board has consistently supported year after year after year after year common sense gun legislation. And now that we have some of it passed in Virginia, and let's be very clear, Virginia is behind many states still in this area, certainly states in this region, that now that we have these tools, and we need every tool possible to deal with gun violence, we are going to protect them to the extent we can. So we will strongly continue to advocate, tell stories like the ones that have been told here about real people's lives that have been affected by this, share our statistics with our members of the General Assembly and with the administration. And you will see our board actively engaged not only in the next legislative session, but in every legislative session the way we have in the past, tracking individual bills, taking positions on them, reaching out to our legislators. So if there is any effort to repeal this law, our board will strongly fight that. We will do the reach out, we will do the advocacy to our community, but most importantly, tell the personal stories about people's lives who have been saved, where we have evidence of people's lives who have been saved by these. But and let me just close by, regardless of what administration is in Richmond, our values in Fairfax County strongly support common sense gun legislation, and so we will protect what we have, but we will not stop advocating for even more legislation as we move forward to protect the lives of people in Fairfax County. And finally, we've been through a tough over a year and a half now, and all indicators are that mental health challenges, stress on people is at an all-time high. We know that domestic violence has spiked as a result of the pandemic. This is no time to scale back laws like the one we're talking about when our community is stretched and been through so much like we have been over the last year and a half.
Yeah, I don't know who this is particularly for necessarily, but are you surprised? Is it 18 or 30? Are you surprised that there haven't been more requests along these lines? And then secondly, does this time of year tend to be particularly trying for families, some families?
I appreciate that question. And the 18 number that I cited were number of orders that have been entered so far. There are still some that are being in process. And I will say that while that number leads the Commonwealth by quite a large factor, I am surprised that it has been that small, because we recognize that the stresses, particularly around domestic situations, can really get out of hand. And I feel like that's why something like this is so important. It's because not that only 18 or 30 people could have been helped by this law, but only that small number knew about it to use the benefits of it. We really feel that once people get to understand and really know how to avail themselves of the red flag law, that the numbers hopefully will increase, because every one of these that gets entered is a potential shooting averted and potential life saved. That's why everybody here is out doing this, trying to spread awareness.
Can you speak to the holidays?
Well, I will say, and I certainly, if Detective Paris would like to talk, or someone else would like to talk, but what we see is that the holidays are a stressful time. That is, we see that not only in the criminal justice system, but everywhere. So taking into account that stress of this time around the holidays, it is very important that going into that, people are aware of the opportunities available because of this red flag law, specifically because we're going into a more stressful time of the year.
Steve, real quick while you're up there.
Sure, Drew.
Have any of the emergency SROs or the SROs, have any of those requests been denied? And if so, how many? And can you generalize, I know it's case to case, but can you generalize roughly how long that process takes from the time that it's submitted until it's actually executed?
Sure. Like I said, I don't have any numbers on anyone's being denied, but what I can say is that our goal in our office is to expedite these as much as possible. Of course, there has to be a full investigation done by law enforcement, but we've worked very, very well with law enforcement to expedite this as much as possible. As a matter of fact, I created a small unit in my office to be the ones that handle this, so that we build expertise, so there are no mistakes, there are nothing falling through the gaps, and we make sure that we get this done as quickly as possible. Because what we don't want to have happen, and which we haven't had happen, is a gap between the emergency risk protection order and an entering of a substantial risk protection order, because that gap would leave people unprotected. And our goal in the Commonwealth Attorney's Office, as well as with the police department, is to make sure that people are protected front to back.
You mentioned possibly strengthening the law. What would you like to see changed?
Well, there are a number of different aspects to the law. One of the aspects that could be strengthened is the duration of the substantial risk order. Right now, the time period given is probably sufficient for many of the cases that we see, but to be able to stretch that out to double it, for maybe making it a year long or something along those lines, I think would really give people who are in these situations and who need the protection of this type of order a little bit more peace of mind. And of course, it would give more protection. At the end of the day, that's what this is all about. So one of the things that is forefront in my mind to strengthen this is to potentially expand out the period of time wherein a substantial risk order would be effective. Thank you for the question.
Okay.
If I can just briefly add to what Commonwealth Descano just mentioned. The holidays for many families is very stressful. Oftentimes you have situations relating to financial stress. There may be issues relating to court access to children, which could all ramp up intimate partner violence. And so while DV is constantly an issue around the holidays, it can tend to ramp up a little bit more, which is why it's critical that this legislation is being put at the forefront, and that more and more people are aware of this legislation and are able to capitalize and utilize it so that we can save more lives.
Can somebody respond to the critique of these laws? And as I understand it, it's kind of twofold. One is that there are already tools that you have to detain people if they've committed crimes. And the second being, here you are taking away a Second Amendment constitutional right without showing that anybody has committed a crime.
Really happy to jump on that, specifically because you asked about tools to detain people. What you have to understand is, yes, there are tools to detain people who have committed a crime, but what red flag laws are really aimed at, and what they really bring to the table, is a lot of times people haven't yet committed a crime, and that's what we're trying to prevent. We're trying to prevent the tragedy from happening. And the red flag law allows law enforcement and the courts to get involved and get guns out of the hands, not after somebody gets shot, but before somebody gets shot. So I think that critique is really, really, obviously it's not your critique, but that critique is really, really tone deaf. Because what we're trying to do with these red flag laws is we're trying to keep people from becoming victims of violence. And that's what this is all about. And that's why these laws are so important. So any argument that there are tools to detain people, and that's why we should get rid of these laws, really, really misses the point. It's about stopping and preventing violence before it happens.
And the due process, taking away somebody's constitutional right without having convicted them of a crime?
Well, I can tell you that as the office who is responsible for prosecuting these cases, due process is there. It's not a law enforcement officer or a Commonwealth's attorney walking in and just saying, "Hey, judge, give me an order to take this person's gun away." It is a full-on hearing. It is a full process. That is the reason why my office, we created a specialty unit to do these, because this isn't something that you just show up and it's a slam dunk for. There's real due process here. There's real work that has to get done through an investigation by law enforcement, through a court case by my office. So again, I think that due process argument falls flat because due process is present, and that's just really a canard that some people use as an argument to repeal these types of laws.
I was just going to expand on that and say, look, across our public safety agencies in the county, our mantra is prevent the 911 call to begin with. And so, as Mr. Toscano just mentioned, this law is about preventing a violent act from occurring. And to critics of it, I would say, if we pick up the paper or turn on the radio or turn on the TV, every day we hear about acts of gun violence that have created one less loved family member, or in some cases dozens. And so as long as I'm chairman and as long as we are here, we are going to take every tool we possibly can to make our community safer. And when people come forward with intelligent information and a thorough analysis is done that they are a risk to our community, we have an obligation to act as elected officials and as public safety agencies in Fairfax County and prevent crimes from occurring before they become a statistic. And so this is one tool of many tools that we utilize to protect our community, but it's a really important one.
I think it's important to note, with regard to the constitutional question, that this law was not created in 2020. This law was first created in Connecticut in 1999, and it has been tested in the federal courts ever since. Obviously, there are opponents to this law. We heard mention of one today. So they have taken every opportunity to attempt to get this law ruled unconstitutional, but the courts have stood by this law because they believe due process is present, and part of that is the 2-week determination period. It's only 2 weeks that a gun or guns are removed before a person has a full hearing. And that can be difficult in many cases to do and to do effectively. But because of that 2 weeks, the courts have determined that due process does exist, and they have upheld this law. So that really is not, is no longer a valid question in terms of the courts. However, we all must be concerned, to be honest, about the future of actions taken by our new Supreme Court. They are looking at gun laws, and this could be eventually on their platter. But for the time being, it is constitutional, as ruled by our courts. Thank you.
Are there any other questions? That concludes our event today. We very much appreciate our panelists for being with us today. Please visit our website, which the address is right there. There's extensive information on what the community can do, Q&As, and other facts that would be very, very valuable to our public. So this concludes the event. Thank you very much for your participation.